The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive bowl, filled with beings from 47 different worlds. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others needed special suits filled with methane or liquid nitrogen. The air itself was carefully controlled to keep everyone alive, creating a strange mix of smells and sounds that made Elena Vasquez's nose twitch. Elena stood in the center of the hall, her dark hair pulled back in a simple bun, wearing the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Around her, hundreds of alien eyes stared down from curved seats that rose up like stadium bleachers. Some of those eyes were huge and black, others were compound like an insect's, and a few glowed with their own inner light. The charges against humanity had been read out loud for over an hour. Elena listened to each word, her hands clenched behind her back. Aggressive expansion, they said. Violation of the peaceful colonization accords. Dangerous unpredictability. The words echoed through the hall, translated into dozens of languages by the Council's computers. Ambassador Vasquez, the speaker's voice boomed from above. The speaker was a Zenthari, a tall gray being with 4 arms and skin that changed color based on mood. Right now it was a deep purple that Elena had learned meant displeasure. Do you wish to respond to these charges? Elena stepped forward, her boots clicking on the smooth metal floor. She had practiced this speech 100 times, but standing here now, surrounded by alien faces that looked at her with fear and disgust, the words felt different. Honored council members, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's speakers. Humanity stands accused of crimes we do not recognize. You call our expansion aggressive, but we have never taken a world by force. Every human colony was built on empty planets or with the full agreement of native species. A ripple of sound went through the hall. The Korath representative, a creature that looked like a giant armored beetle, clicked its mandibles loudly. Empty to you, perhaps, but you humans see only resources where others see sacred space. Elena's jaw tightened. We see potential where others see nothing. Is that not what exploration means? Is that not what brought each of your species to the stars? Your species is too young, said the Etherian delegate, its voice like wind through crystal. The Etherians were beings of pure energy, appearing as shifting lights in specially designed containers. Too reckless. You have been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries, yet you spread faster than species who have traveled the stars for millennia. Because we adapt, Elena replied. Because we find solutions where others see only problems. When we found that Kepler 442b had acid rain, we didn't abandon it. We built cities under domes and learned to process the acid into useful chemicals. When the TRAPPIST system had gravitational anomalies that made your ships unable to land, we designed new engines that could handle the stress. Exactly the problem, hissed the Vorthon representative, a snake-like being with scales that reflected light like oil. You change things. You modify. You refuse to accept natural limitations. This is not how civilized species behave. Elena looked around the hall, seeing the same expression on face after face, no matter how alien they were. Fear. They were afraid of what humanity might become, afraid of what humanity might discover that they had missed. Civilized. Elena repeated the word slowly. Is it civilized to banish an entire species because they think differently? Is it civilized to punish innovation? Every species here has benefited from human discoveries. Our medical advances have saved millions of Korath lives. Our agricultural techniques feed half the colonies. In the Outer Rim, our defense technologies protected this very council from the Dark Fleet invasion just 5 years ago, and that is precisely why you must go, the speaker said, its skin now a deep red that Elena knew meant finality. You solve problems, yes, but you create chaos in doing so. Your medical advances work by destroying and rebuilding living tissue at the cellular level. Your agricultural techniques change the very DNA of plants. Your defense technologies bend space itself in ways that violate natural law. Natural law? Elena's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. Space travel violates natural law. Faster-than-light communication violates natural law. This very council, bringing together species from across the galaxy, violates natural law. Progress requires change. Some changes go too far, said a new voice. Elena turned to see the architect representative rise from its seat. The architects were ancient, older than any other council species, and looked like tall, thin humanoids made of silver metal. When an architect spoke, everyone listened. Young humans, the architect continued, its voice like bells ringing in the distance. Your species has potential, yes, but potential without wisdom is dangerous. You have been among the stars for such a short time, yet you already change fundamental forces. What will you become in 1,000 years? 10,000? Elena felt her heart sink. If even the architects voted against humanity, there was no hope. The vote has been called, the speaker announced. All in favor of Resolution 847C. The banishment of humanity from all council space and the seizure of human colonial assets for redistribution among member species. Lights began appearing on the great board above the speaker's platform. Green for yes, red for no. Elena watched the lights appear one by one. Green, green, green. A few red lights scattered here and there. The Centaurians, who had always been friends to humanity. The scientific commune of Kepler 62. A handful of others, but mostly green. 41 votes for banishment. 6 against. The resolution passes, the speaker declared. Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council and banned from all territories under Council protection. Human colonies will be evacuated within 30 standard days. All human vessels must withdraw beyond the galactic edge, to the region known as the Void. The Void. Elena had heard of it, of course. The empty space beyond the spiral arm, where stars were scattered thin and faster than light travel barely worked. A region so barren that no species had ever bothered to explore it properly. It might as well be a death sentence. Elena straightened her shoulders and looked up at the assembled delegates. You mistake our adaptability for aggression, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the sudden silence. You mistake our innovation for chaos. You fear what you don't understand and you punish what you can't control. She paused, letting her words sink in. But history will remember this day. History will judge who was truly civilized, those who banished an entire species for daring to dream of something better, or those who took that banishment and made it into something greater than what they lost. With that, Elena turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast hall. Behind her, the alien delegates began to disperse, already making plans to divide up humanity's former colonies among themselves. But Elena wasn't thinking about what humanity was losing. She was thinking about what they might find in the dark spaces between the stars, in the void that no one else wanted to explore. Maybe banishment wasn't a punishment at all. Maybe it was an opportunity. 3 years had passed since the great ships left council space, carrying 8 billion humans toward the edge of nowhere. The exodus had been hard enough, watching their colonies disappear behind them as they flew toward the galactic rim. But living in the void was harder than anyone had imagined. Dr. Marcus Chen rubbed his tired eyes and looked out the window of Research Station Kepler, humanity's largest facility in their new home. Outside, space looked different here. Instead of the thick star fields of the spiral arm, he saw only scattered points of light separated by vast distances of empty darkness. It was beautiful in its own way, but also terrifying. Another ship lost contact yesterday, said Dr. Sarah Kim, walking into his lab with a cup of coffee that smelled like heaven. Real coffee was a luxury now, rationed like everything else. The cargo vessel heading to New Brisbane. They just vanished somewhere between here and the Tau Ceti Void Station. Marcus took the offered cup gratefully. Same as the others. Same pattern. Normal communications right up until they weren't. No distress signal, no emergency beacon. They just stopped existing as far as our sensors can tell. This was the problem with the void. Traditional faster-than-light travel barely worked here. The jump drives that carried ships across hundreds of light years in council space could only manage short hops between the scattered stars. And sometimes ships that made those jumps never arrived at their destination. Maybe the aliens were right, Sarah said quietly. Maybe this place really is uninhabitable. Marcus didn't answer right away. He'd been thinking the same thing lately. The human settlements scattered across a dozen marginal worlds were struggling. Food was scarce because the soil on most planets was poor. Energy was limited because solar power worked badly when the nearest star was often too far away. And the isolation was getting to people. Mental health problems were rising on every world. But something else was happening too. Something that Marcus was only beginning to understand. Look at this, he said, turning to his computer screen. The display showed a 3-dimensional map of local space, with human settlements marked as blue dots and known phenomena marked in different colors. These red areas, Marcus pointed to several regions that looked like clouds on the map. Dark matter concentrations. They're everywhere in the void, much denser than in normal space. So dark matter behaves differently here. In council space, it's passive, inert. It just sits there providing gravitational effects. But here, Marcus pulled up another display showing energy readings. Here it responds to electromagnetic fields. Watch. He pressed a button and the display showed a simulation of a focused radio transmission hitting a dark matter cloud. The cloud shifted, pulsed, and began to glow with a faint energy signature. "It's like it's alive," Sarah whispered. "Not alive exactly, but not dead either. It's like—" Marcus searched for the right words. "Like it's sleeping, waiting for something to wake it up." The lab door opened and Captain Torres walked in, still wearing her flight suit from a recent patrol mission. Torres commanded the scout ships that explored deeper into the void, mapping safe routes between human settlements. "You two need to see something," Torres said without preamble. "My crew just got back from the deep survey mission. We found something out there." She activated the holographic display in the center of the lab. A star map appeared, showing their current location and the path Torres's ship had taken into the deep void. About 50 light-years out, there was a marker indicating an anomaly. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "We're not sure. It looks like a structure, but it's huge. Maybe 1,000 kilometers across. It's made of some kind of metal we've never seen before, and it's old. Really old. Our dating equipment says it's been there for millions of years." The hologram zoomed in on the anomaly. Marcus could see it now. A vast geometric shape floating in empty space, all angles and curves that seemed to bend light around them. It looked almost like a city, but a city built by minds that thought in ways no human could understand. "Did you try to make contact?" Sarah asked. "We tried everything. Radio, laser communication, even physical approach. No response, but—" Torres paused, looking uncomfortable. "My crew started having dreams about it. All of them, the same dreams. They said something was watching us, something patient and old and vast." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of dreams?" "They described voices speaking in mathematics. Equations that showed how space and time could be folded, how energy could be pulled from nothing, how matter could be created or destroyed at will." One of my engineers, Jackson, he woke up and started drawing diagrams. Complex stuff way beyond anything we know how to build. Torres activated another part of the hologram. Marcus saw technical drawings that looked like a fusion of human engineering and something else entirely. Ships that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially somewhere else. Engines that used dark matter as fuel. Weapons that could erase matter from existence. "This is impossible," Sarah said. "These designs violate half the laws of physics." "Do they?" Marcus asked. "Or do they follow laws we haven't discovered yet?" He turned back to his own research, his mind racing. The dark matter clouds, the ancient structure, the dreams, and it was all connected somehow. The void wasn't empty at all. It was full of something humanity was only beginning to understand. "I need to run some tests," he said. "Torres, can you take me out to one of those dark matter concentrations? I want to see what happens when we actively try to interact with it." "Marcus, that could be dangerous," Sarah warned. "We don't know what we're dealing with." "No, we don't, but that's never stopped humans before, has it?" Marcus smiled grimly. "The council banished us here because they thought we were too reckless, too willing to experiment with things we didn't understand." Maybe they were right. Maybe that's exactly what this place needs. 2 days later, Marcus found himself in the research vessel Curiosity, approaching a dark matter cloud the size of a small moon. The cloud hung in space like a dark fog, invisible to the naked eye but clear on their sensors. "Beginning. Focused electromagnetic pulse," announced the ship's AI. "Pulse strength at minimum safe level." The radio beam lanced out from their ship and struck the dark matter cloud. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cloud began to glow with soft blue light, patterns of energy flowing through it like neural pathways in a vast brain. "Increase pulse strength," Marcus ordered. The glow grew brighter. The patterns became more complex. And then impossibly the cloud began to move toward them. "Marcus," Torres said from the pilot's seat, her voice tense. "We need to go now." But Marcus was staring at his instruments in wonder. The dark matter wasn't just moving randomly. It was organizing itself, forming structures, creating order from chaos. And the energy readings were off the charts, "Don't you see?" he whispered. "It's not dangerous. It's trying to communicate. The whole void, all of it, it's one massive intelligence, sleeping for millions of years, waiting for someone curious enough to wake it up. The dark matter cloud reached their ship and flowed around it like water. For a moment, Marcus felt something touch his mind, vast, ancient, patient, beyond human understanding. And in that touch, he saw possibilities that made his heart race. The Council had banished humanity to the void, thinking it was empty space. They had no idea they'd just introduced the most curious species in the galaxy to something that had been waiting eons for someone to ask the right questions. The breakthrough came 6 months after Marcus's first contact with the dark matter intelligence. He called it the Void Drive, though the name barely captured what the technology actually did. It didn't push against space-time like traditional faster-than-light engines. Instead, it harmonized with the dark energy flowing through the void, riding the currents like a ship on an ocean. The first test was terrifying and beautiful. The prototype vessel, a small research craft called Pioneer, simply vanished from normal space and reappeared on the other side of the void system in less than an hour. A journey that should have taken 3 weeks with conventional drives. How is this possible? Asked Captain Torres, staring at the readings from Pioneer's successful test flight. She stood in the main laboratory on Research Station Kepler, surrounded by dozens of scientists and engineers who were all trying to understand what they'd just witnessed. The dark matter isn't just responding to our signals, Marcus explained, pointing to the complex equations covering the wall screens. It's actively helping us. Think of it like this: normal space is like air. You can fly through it, but you have to push against resistance. The void is different. The dark energy here wants to move, and it's willing to carry us along. Dr. Sarah Kim looked skeptical. But why would it help us? What does it get out of the arrangement? Marcus smiled, though his eyes looked tired. He'd been working 18-hour days for months, driven by discoveries that seemed to come faster than he could process them. I think it's been lonely. Lonely? The intelligence in the void, and there definitely is one. We've confirmed that. It's been dormant for millions of years, waiting. When we arrived, when we started actively trying to communicate with the dark matter, we woke something up, something that's been sleeping since before humans even existed. Torres activated the holographic display, showing the network of dark matter concentrations throughout local space. But now the display looked different. Instead of random clouds, the dark matter had organized itself into pathways connecting every human settlement. It's building infrastructure, Torres said with amazement. Roads through space. More than roads, said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the xenoarchaeologist who'd been studying the ancient structures Torres had discovered. Look at this. Yuki's section of the display showed the massive alien structure they'd found earlier, but now it was surrounded by dozens of similar objects. All of them were awakening, lighting up with energy signatures that matched the dark matter pathways. They're not just buildings, Yuki continued. They're machines. Incredibly advanced technology that's been dormant for geological ages, and they're all activating in response to our presence. Marcus nodded grimly. The dreams are getting stronger too. Half our people report the same visions now. Equations, blueprints, instructions. It's like something is trying to teach us. Teach us what? Sarah asked. Before Marcus could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed red as the station's AI announced, "Incoming transmission from New Terra Colony. Priority 1 emergency status." Torres activated the communication system. The face of Governor Chen appeared on the main screen, his expression a mixture of excitement and terror. Research Station Kepler, we have a situation here. Our colony's void drive test yesterday. Something unexpected happened. What kind of unexpected? Torres asked. The drive worked perfectly. Too perfectly. But when we activated it, every piece of abandoned alien technology within 100 light-years came online. Ancient structures are rising from the surfaces of dead worlds. Massive constructs are emerging from asteroid fields, and they're all heading toward us. The display switched to external cameras showing New Terra Colony. Above the planet, space was filled with enormous alien vessels, each one different but all clearly built by the same incomprehensible intelligence. They moved with purpose, arranging themselves in complex geometric patterns around the human settlement. Are they hostile? Marcus asked. We don't think so. They're not attacking, just watching. And our people are having the dreams more intensely now. The equations are getting more complex, showing us things we never imagined were possible. Dr. Tanaka was studying her own readings, her face pale. Marcus, these structures, they're not just alien technology. They're architect technology. Architect? Torres looked confused. You mean like the Galactic Council species? No, not those architects. The real architects. The builders. Yuki's voice was barely a whisper. The species that existed before all the others. Before the galaxy took its current form. They were supposed to be extinct for millions of years. Marcus felt pieces clicking together in his mind. They're not extinct. They evolved beyond physical existence. That's what the dark matter intelligence is. It's what the architects became when they transcended their biological forms. And now they're trying to uplift us, Sarah said, understanding dawning in her voice. That's why the technology only responds to humans. Our neural patterns, our chaotic way of thinking, it matches what they need to reactivate their civilization. The communication from New Terra crackled again. Governor Chen looked directly at Marcus. Dr. Chen, one of our engineers, had a vision last night. She says the architects left their technology behind as a test. They wanted to see if any species would develop the right kind of curiosity, the willingness to experiment with forces beyond their understanding. The council species failed the test, Torres realized. They're too rigid, too afraid of change. They see the unknown and build walls around it. But humans see the unknown and try to understand it, Marcus finished, even when it's dangerous. Especially when it's dangerous. Over the following weeks, the pattern repeated across every human settlement in the void. Wherever humans tested the void drive technology, ancient architect machines awakened. The structures weren't threatening, they were helpful, providing unlimited energy, advanced materials, and manufacturing capabilities beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. But more importantly, they were teaching. Through dreams, through direct neural interface with volunteers, through mathematical concepts downloaded directly into human minds, the architect intelligence was sharing knowledge accumulated over millions of years. Humans learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level, to fold space-time like origami, to draw energy from the fundamental forces of reality itself. Colony ships that had struggled to survive in the harsh void were suddenly transforming into gleaming cities that existed, partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that human language couldn't describe. We need to be careful, Dr. Kim warned during one of their daily briefings. This level of technological advancement in such a short time, it could destroy us if we're not ready for it. The architects seem to think we're ready, Marcus replied. Otherwise they wouldn't be sharing it with us. But what do they want in return? Torres asked. No one gives away godlike technology for free. The answer came that night, in dreams shared by every human in the void simultaneously. Marcus found himself standing in a vast space filled with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. In front of him stood a figure that was definitely humanoid but wrong in ways his mind couldn't process. Too tall, with too many joints made of light and mathematics instead of flesh. You ask what we want, the architect said, its voice speaking directly into Marcus's thoughts. We want what we have always wanted. To explore, to learn, to grow. But we evolved beyond the need for physical form long ago. We became pure thought, pure mathematics. We gained infinite knowledge but lost the ability to experience wonder. And you think humans can give that back to you? Humans are chaos given form. You see patterns we cannot. Ask questions we would never think to pose. In sharing our knowledge with you, we rediscover what it means to be curious about the universe. Marcus understood. A symbiosis. You provide the knowledge, we provide the perspective. Yes, and together, we will explore mysteries that neither of us could face alone. When Marcus woke, he found messages waiting from every human settlement in the void. The same dream, the same revelation. Humanity had not just found shelter in the space they'd been banished to. They'd found partners who had been waiting eons for minds chaotic enough to reawaken their sleeping civilization. The council thought they'd condemned humanity to exile in empty space. Instead, they'd introduced them to the true inheritors of the galaxy. Beings so advanced they'd transcended physical existence itself, and those beings had been waiting a very long time for students worthy of their knowledge. 5 years after humanity's banishment, the void had become unrecognizable. What had once been empty space dotted with struggling colonies was now a thriving civilization that defied every known law of physics. Human settlements had grown into massive cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, their spires reaching into spaces that conventional mathematics couldn't describe. Captain Sarah Torres stood on the bridge of her flagship. the Voidwalker, watching a routine patrol of the outer boundaries. Her ship was unlike anything that had existed before. A fusion of human engineering and architect technology that could phase in and out of normal space at will. The hull was made of programmable matter that responded to thought, and the engines drew power from the fundamental forces that held reality together. Contact bearing 3 Mark 7, announced her tactical officer, Lieutenant Chen. Single vessel, configuration unknown. Torres smiled grimly. She knew exactly what that meant. After 5 years of complete isolation, someone from Council Space had finally worked up the courage to see what had happened to the banished humans. "Let me guess," she said. "It's running silent, trying to use passive sensors only, hoping we won't notice them." "Yes, ma'am." "Should we hail them?" "No need. They'll see us soon enough." Torres activated the ship's display system, showing the approaching vessel on the main screen. It was a Council patrol ship, sleek and silver in the style of the Zenthari fleet. A good ship by Council standards, fast and well-armed, completely helpless against what humanity had become. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Chen said, his voice uncertain. "They're charging weapons. Standard Council doctrine," Torres replied calmly. "When faced with something you don't understand, shoot first and study the debris later. Bring us alongside them. Full visibility." The Voidwalker shifted from stealth mode to normal space, appearing suddenly beside the Council ship. Torres could imagine the panic on their bridge as sensors that should have detected them from millions of kilometers away suddenly registered a massive vessel right next to them. "This is Captain Torres of the Human Defense Fleet," she broadcast on standard Council frequencies. "You are in Void territory without permission. State your business or return to Council space." The response came after a long pause, filled with static and what sounded like frantic background conversations. "This is Commander Velkin of the Zenthari patrol ship Resolution. We did not detect your approach." "How is that possible?" "There are many things that are possible now, Commander. Things the Council never imagined when they sent us into exile. I suggest you return to your superiors and inform them that humanity remembers both its friends and its enemies." "Wait." Velkin's voice carried a note of desperation. "We need to know what happened to you." "The Council. They're afraid. Strange energy signatures have been detected coming from the void. Ships have gone missing near the boundary. We need to understand what you've become." Torres considered the request. The human government in exile had been debating what to do when Council forces inevitably came looking for them. Some wanted complete isolation, others favored limited contact. But Torres had her own ideas about what humanity's response should be. "Very well, Commander. You may accompany us to New Geneva Station. But understand that you are guests in our territory now, and our hospitality has limits." The journey to New Geneva took only minutes, even though the station was dozens of light years away. The Voidwalker simply folded space around itself, carrying the Council ship along in its wake. Torres watched with satisfaction as the alien crew struggled to understand what they were experiencing. New Geneva Station had been humanity's first major construction project using architect technology. It existed partially in normal space and partially in what the humans had started calling hyperspace, dimensions where physical laws were more like suggestions than absolute rules. To visitors from Council space, it looked like a city-sized structure that hurt to look at directly, its geometry shifting and changing in ways that made no logical sense. "Impossible," Commander Velkin whispered over the communication channel. "This violates every known principle of engineering." "Your principles," Torres corrected. "The universe has far more possibilities than your Council ever imagined." They docked at one of the station's many ports, and Torres met the Zenthari commander in person for the first time. Velkin was typical for his species. Tall, gray-skinned, with 4 arms and large black eyes that reflected his current emotional state. Right now, those eyes showed fear mixed with fascination. "Your species has changed," Velkin observed as they walked through the station's corridors. Around them, humans went about their business using technology that seemed like magic. Children played games that involved manipulating gravity. Engineers worked on projects that existed in multiple dimensions. Citizens moved through doorways that led to places thousands of kilometers away. "We've grown," Torres replied. "The void taught us things the Council could never have imagined." They entered the station's main observation deck, where Admiral Elena Vasquez was waiting. Torres had requested this meeting specifically. She wanted the council to understand that humanity's leadership had also evolved. Elena looked older than when she'd stood before the council 5 years ago, but there was something else different about her. Her eyes held depths that seemed to contain infinite knowledge, and when she moved, space itself seemed to bend slightly around her. She had become one of the first humans to fully interface with architect technology, allowing her consciousness to exist partially in hyperspace. "Commander Velkin," Elena said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in dimensions beyond sound. "Welcome to humanity's new home." "Admiral Vasquez," Velkin replied, trying to maintain diplomatic composure despite his obvious terror. "The council sent me to assess the situation in the void." "And what have you assessed?" "That we made a terrible mistake," Velkin said quietly. "When we banished your species, we thought we were sending you to die in empty space. Instead, we gave you access to something we never knew existed." Elena smiled, and for a moment Torres could see the mathematical equations that were her thoughts, floating in the air around her like living symbols. The architects have been waiting for millions of years for a species curious enough to wake them from their sleep. Your council species were too rigid, too afraid of change. But humans, we see the unknown and reach out to touch it. "What do you want from us?" Velkin asked. "Nothing," Elena replied. "We have everything we need now. Unlimited energy, infinite space, technology that makes your greatest achievements look like stone tools. The question is what you want from us." "The council is terrified," Velkin admitted. "The energy signatures coming from the void are unlike anything we've ever seen. Our scientists think you might have weapons that could destroy entire star systems." "We do," Elena said simply, "but we also have the wisdom to understand when not to use them. The architects learned long ago that true power comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the ability to create." She gestured to the massive window that showed the view outside the station. In the distance, Velkin could see construction projects that defied belief. Artificial stars being built from pure energy, planets being shaped from raw matter, space itself being woven into new configurations. "We're not building weapons," Elena continued. "We're building worlds. Entire civilizations that exist in dimensions your people can't even perceive. The void isn't empty space, it's infinite possibility." "And you would share this with others?" Elena's expression grew serious. "The architects are not vindictive, Commander. Neither are we. But trust must be earned. The Council banished us in fear, seized our colonies, scattered our people across hostile space. Some of your species supported those actions, others opposed them. What would it take for the Council to earn that trust?" "Wisdom," Elena replied. "The willingness to admit that your way of thinking is not the only way. The courage to explore possibilities that frighten you. The humility to learn from those you once considered inferior." Torres watched as Velkin struggled to process what he was hearing. She could see the wheels turning in his alien mind, trying to figure out how to report this back to his superiors. "Your ship will be provided with complete sensor readings of our capabilities," Elena continued. "Take them back to the Council. Let them understand what they threw away when they banished us, and let them consider whether they want to remain trapped in their small corner of the universe, while infinity waits beyond their borders." 3 days later, Torres watched as the Resolution departed for Council space, carrying with it data that would change the galaxy forever. The Council would learn that humanity hadn't just survived their exile, they had transcended it, becoming something beyond the aliens' greatest fears or wildest dreams. "Do you think they'll attack?" Lieutenant Chen asked as the Council ship disappeared into hyperspace. Torres smiled, thinking of the weapons humanity now possessed, devices that could erase matter from existence, fields that could turn space itself into a weapon, technologies that existed partially outside of time and could strike before they were even fired. "If they do," she said, "it will be the shortest war in galactic history." The War Council on Zenthari Prime had been meeting for 6 months, ever since Commander Velkin returned with his impossible report. The chamber was filled with representatives from every council species, their faces showing the same expression regardless of their alien features: terror. "The energy readings alone are beyond our comprehension," announced the Korath military advisor, his beetle-like form clicking nervously. "Their weapons don't just destroy matter, they appear to remove it from reality entirely. Our best scientists can't even theorize how such technology could exist. The Zenthari speaker stood at the center of the chamber, his skin a deep red that indicated extreme stress. The question before us is simple. Do we attempt negotiation or do we eliminate the threat before it can spread? Negotiation with what? Hissed the Vorthan representative. They're no longer the species we banished. They've become something inhuman, something that bends the laws of physics to their will. Which is exactly why we must act now, declared General Thrak of the Korath Empire. Every day we delay, they grow stronger. Their technology advances at rates that should be impossible. If we wait much longer, we may not have the option of resistance. The Etherian delegate, its energy form flickering with agitation, spoke in tones like wind through crystal. The humans offered to share their knowledge with species willing to learn. Perhaps we should consider share. General Thrak's mandibles clicked in derision. Share technology that makes our greatest weapons look like toys. Give them the opportunity to study our defenses while pretending friendship? No, the only choice is a preemptive strike. And if we fail? Asked the ancient architect representative, its silver form unmoving. If their defenses are as advanced as their other technologies? Then we die knowing we tried to preserve civilization rather than surrendering to chaos, Thrak replied. The vote was closer than expected, but fear won over wisdom. 28 species voted for war, 19 for attempted negotiation. The largest military fleet in galactic history would be assembled. 10,000 ships from every council member, equipped with the most advanced weapons available. It would not be enough. 2 months later, Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Infinity's Edge, watching the approaching council armada through sensors that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. The enemy fleet was massive by conventional standards, but Elena could see the fear radiating from every ship like heat from a star. They're actually going to do it, said Captain Torres, who commanded the Void Walker at Elena's side. After everything we showed them, they chose violence over understanding. Fear makes people do foolish things, Elena replied. Her consciousness partially extended into hyperspace where she could perceive the mathematical foundations of reality itself. The architects warned me this might happen. When a rigid system encounters true change, it often chooses self-destruction over adaptation. The human fleet that faced the Council Armada was smaller, only 50 ships. But each vessel was a fusion of human innovation and architect wisdom, existing partially outside normal space-time. Their hulls were made of programmable matter that could reconfigure itself in response to weapons fire. Their engines drew power from the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Their weapons could strike targets across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Incoming transmission from the lead council ship, announced the ship's AI, its voice carrying harmonics that existed in spaces beyond sound. Elena nodded. Put them through. The face that appeared on the main screen was General Thrak of the Korath Empire, his insectoid features twisted with determination and barely contained fear. Behind him, Elena could see the command bridge of a massive dreadnought, filled with alien officers trying to maintain their composure. Admiral Vasquez, Thrak spoke in the formal tones of military protocol. By order of the Galactic Council, you and your species are commanded to surrender immediately. Your illegal weapons and stolen technology will be confiscated, and your people will be relocated to supervised colonies, where they can cause no further harm to galactic civilization. Elena almost felt sorry for him. The general had no idea what he was facing, no understanding of what humanity had become during their exile in the void. General Thrak, she replied, her voice carrying mathematical certainties that resonated across 11 dimensions. You misunderstand the situation. This is not a battle between equals. This is a parent trying to prevent a child from touching something dangerous. Withdraw your fleet now and we can still discuss terms for coexistence. Surrender is not an option, Thrak replied. If you will not submit voluntarily, we will take what action is necessary to preserve the safety of civilized space. Very well, Elena said sadly. You have chosen your path. The Council fleet opened fire first, 10,000 ships unleashing everything they had. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravitational disruptors, antimatter missiles. The combined firepower could have reduced entire star systems to dust. It never reached the human ships. Elena had activated the void screen, a defensive technology that existed partially outside of normal space-time. The Council weapons struck barriers that weren't quite in the same dimension as their targets, their energy dissipating harmlessly into hyperspace. Impossible, Thrak whispered, watching his fleet's most powerful weapons accomplish nothing. Your turn, Elena said quietly. The human fleet didn't move in any conventional sense. Instead, they simply appeared in new positions throughout the Council formation, having folded space around themselves in ways that made traditional tactics meaningless. Each human ship was suddenly surrounded by dozens of Council vessels, their exotic weapons charging with energies that made space itself ripple. All Council ships, this is your final warning, Elena broadcast on all frequencies. Power down your weapons and prepare for escort back to Council space. Continued hostility will be met with force. General Thrak's response was to order his ships to ram the human vessels, hoping that physical contact might succeed where energy weapons had failed. It was a mistake. The Void Walker, Captain Torres's flagship, was directly in the path of 3 Korath dreadnoughts moving at ramming speed. Instead of trying to avoid them, Torres simply phased her ship 90 degrees out of normal space. The Council ships passed through the position where the Void Walker had been, colliding with empty space that somehow fought back. One by one, Council ships began to vanish. Not destroyed in explosions of light and debris, but simply erased from existence, removed from reality so completely that their crew members forgot they had ever existed. The human weapons didn't kill, they edited, rewriting the fundamental equations that defined matter and energy until their targets had never been. Stop, General Thrak finally transmitted, his voice breaking. Please, we surrender. Elena felt no satisfaction in the victory. The architects had taught humanity that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to show mercy. She ordered her fleet to cease fire, though by then, less than 1,000 Council ships remained from the original 10,000. This is what fear brings you, Elena said, her voice reaching every surviving ship simultaneously. You chose violence over understanding, destruction over growth. Your fleet is broken, your weapons are useless, and your leaders have learned that there are forces in the universe beyond your comprehension. She paused, letting the weight of their defeat sink in. But humanity is not vindictive. We remember that some of your species voted against our banishment. We remember those who offered us aid when we needed it most. So I make you this offer, General. Return to Council space. Tell your leaders what you have seen, and when they are ready to approach us with wisdom instead of fear, we will be waiting. What do you want from us? Thrak asked, his proud military bearing finally cracking. Nothing, Elena replied. We have transcended the need for anything your Council can provide. But the universe is vast, General, and there are wonders beyond your imagination waiting to be discovered. The choice is yours. Remain trapped in your small corner of known space, or join us in exploring infinity. 3 months later, the first Council ships arrived at the edge of the void, carrying not weapons but scientists and explorers. The Centaurians came first, as Elena had expected. They had always been humanity's friends. But others followed. Young Zenthari who dreamed of knowledge beyond their elders' rigid thinking. Etherian researchers fascinated by the mathematical implications of architect technology. Even a few Korath engineers who had grown tired of building weapons. Elena watched them arrive from her office on New Geneva Station, now expanded into a structure the size of a small moon. Through the vast windows she could see construction projects that would have been impossible just years before. New worlds being shaped from pure energy, space itself being woven into configurations that allowed multiple star systems to exist in the same physical location. The first joint Human Council expedition is ready to depart, reported Captain Torres, now commanding the exploration fleet. We're taking them to see the deep archives, the architect databases that exist in the 47th dimension. Be careful, Elena warned. Knowledge like that can be overwhelming for minds that aren't prepared for it.